welcome to Three Count Commentaries. Before we start talking about blue and gold Smackdown, but before we get there, I gotta do a note. WWE, a couple of hours before Smackdown, an interview, a story on ESPN went up. It was called "It is the Dawning of a New Era: How WWE Moves Forward Without Vince McMahon." It was written by Mike Coppinger. I can't believe I mispronounced Mike. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it essentially gives some interesting quotes from other people in this thing that I kind of want to read and talk about. So the title comes from Becky Lynch. She said, "It is the dawning of the new era." Becky Lynch, one of WWE's top stars, told ESPN on Friday. "For me, it's crazy and sad because everything I've ever known about WWE has always had Vince in charge. And we wouldn't have WWE the way it is if it wasn't for Vince. Somebody who believed in me and allowed me to do everything that I've done." Then she said, "At the same time, we have the opportunity to change some things that maybe weren't so great and we didn't love. I think everybody's very excited and optimistic because we know that the people in charge are some of the greatest minds in the business. Having Triple H at the helm of the ship is phenomenal. What he's done with NXT speaks for itself. What he did with the women's division and how he allowed us to change the business forever speaks for itself." Now, of course, this leads to our conversation about Triple H putting a lot of focus on the women's division, which he did both on Raw and SmackDown. Now, I don't necessarily have an issue with a renewed focus on the women's division. I'm of the opinion that if you're going to have them, at least do something with them, at least be good. That's the basic bare minimum. Be good. Do good stuff. That's all I care about. As long as it's not midgets and vomit. Because that kind of stuff grosses me out. So midgets, like vomit, some weird things that maybe I didn't come across yet, I could do without. But for the most part, just be good. So Triple H focusing on the women's division, I'm fine. I do have questions about the women that he chooses to focus on. We're going to talk about that probably a little bit later. Now, Undertaker, I think, probably has what I feel is the most optimistic view. Undertaker says, quote, "They're loosening the reins a little bit as far as what guys can say and do. I think the product will probably be a little bit more aggressive. I think they're going to come through in the creative. They've been kind of in entertainment mode, so they're going to have some grit and meanness." I like that. I like all of those things that he's talking about. Now, the entertainment, I do like that. That's what I want from a WWE. The grit and the meanness, though, we do need that. That's something that Vince was deathly afraid of. There was something about Vince McMahon turning WWE everything into a goddamn Marvel movie that kind of flipped me out. I didn't like it. Like, I complained about Marvel movies because every serious thing was undercut with a bunch of comedy, but that's how Raw and SmackDown were every single week. There was always somebody getting hit in the face with a pie, a fart joke, a vomit, somebody slipping and falling on a banana peel, something getting dumped on somebody. It wasn't enough seriousness. Like, the seriousness was left for like Brock and Roman. And then even Brock and Roman sometimes were doing too much comedy. You know, like Brock was doing comedy with Sami Zayn. You know, I feel like it should have been grittier. You know, that does need to exist. There does need to be that element of, this is a fight for survival. This is a fight for a reward. This is a fight for something. It should have some gravitas. You understand what I'm saying? And the loosening of the reins, as we see, there was a dirt sheet that floated around here, basically saying that Triple H is going to kind of let up on things like people saying the word wrestler, saying the word belt, some stuff like that. And I think Becky Lynch mentioned that in this article too. But let's see. Yeah, she says it right here. Maybe we get to bring some words back. I like words. I like having a free range of lots of words. She said, belts, fans, whatever else it is. As we see on SmackDown, Liv Morgan said shit or bullshit or however that went. So, you know, they're going to loosen up the reins on some of the verbiage, which, you know, is the right thing to do. I actually do like that change. I was never really into Vince banning words, you know, because it just felt like whims. Like, I got his reasoning why you don't want to do certain things. And you do want to create, like Disney had its own money. Vince could put his face on his own money, which he actually did. But if he could turn that into legal currency in every arena that he went into, he probably would have done that. Just how Disney had their own money. You get Chuck E. Cheese coins. You can get WWE coins. And you go in and you give, $100 to some vendor. They give you 2 Stephanies in events or something like that. And you take this to the t-shirt guy or whatever, and you buy your shirts that way. I'm sure Vince would have loved it. He really wanted WWE to exist in its own bubble. And in part of having its own bubble, it had to have its own language. But that language is extremely clunky. It was extremely hefty. And it was entirely unwieldy. Some of that stuff didn't make any sense. Now, it's going to take some time for some of these people to get off saying championship instead of belt, wrestler, etc. I know Cody has always been saying wrestler. He's probably going to be like, yes, I get to say wrestler without Vince yelling at me. But ultimately, that's one of the little changes that they can make that would make at least the dialogue better. And I actually do like that. Lashley, of course, then he said it in an attempt to be optimistic, but this is the moment we feared. He says, quote, "It's not like Vince is going to be there, not going to be there anymore. He's not just going to let his baby that he's grown to this level just falter. So he's going to be there. He's just giving other people opportunities to press on. Stephanie, she's been in the business her entire life, so it's not like she doesn't know. And look at what Triple H did with NXT. That's a big thing Triple H did. So he's going to take that same mentality and same philosophy, building stars, bringing it up to the main roster, which is cool. It's going to be refreshing. And until he decides that people that he's going to push have zero charisma. I'm talking zero charisma. And we've seen it on Raw and SmackDown now, that some of the people Triple H wants to put a spotlight on have no characters and zero charisma. That's not good. That was the problem with NXT. That's why everybody is so concerned about Triple H running the book. It is a problem. I know Lashley, he's a nice guy. Everybody's friends with Triple H. They've been working with him for a long time. Nobody wants to criticize him. I'm sure the women are very excited. They're going to get more TV time. But Triple H is not the best when it comes to making decisions on who to push. Again, Triple H had Bianca Belair for 3 years in NXT. She lost almost all the time. She really didn't start getting over until right before she was snatched out of NXT. She lost pretty much every big match she was involved in. They brought her up within 1 year. Vince had turned her into a star bigger than most of the stars in the business. Let's put it like that. Let's not talk about any specific wrestling company. He was able to do that in 1 year with this girl who Triple H had for 3 years. Okay? And it ended up being the right one. Because the ones Triple H was pushing, with the exception of Rhea Ripley, who didn't really get a chance. I'll give them some credit. Rhea Ripley didn't really get a chance. But almost everybody that was pushing over her, I mean, just look at them. Candice LeRae. Come on. Come on. Dakota Kai. Are you serious? Would you rather have Dakota Kai or Bianca Belair? But Triple H, when given the opportunity, he had both of them on the roster. He was pushing Dakota Kai. He had her routinely in top spots. That's ridiculous. We've seen over and over and over again where Triple H has made the mistake. And yes, Vince has made a mistake too. Which one of them is Triple H is actually going to fix? Give him a thumbs up for that. But man, I just don't see where Vince whiffed a lot on the NXT talent that was brought up. When you look at a certain wrestling show where a lot of Triple H's favorites have gone, none of them have increased their stock. And they have so much more creative freedom in this other place. None of them have increased their stock. Not a single one. Out of the 5 or 6 that were signed that went over there, not one have increased their stock. But look at the ones Vince has done. Select people, not all of them, of course, but select. He's taken them and taken them to the next level. You know, even if there was an attempt and it was abandoned for whatever reason, there was an attempt. Triple H is not going to try to force the issue. You know, and I'm not feeling it. Ain't feeling it. Not feeling it at all. So the rest of the article is about, you know, all of the stuff that Triple H has got to fix and how everybody's so excited for this new thing that they're trying to do here, and of course some background on WWE. It was funny. It was fun. It was not a bad read. I didn't have a problem with it. Just wanted to poke out some quotes. I want to poke out another quote, not from the same article, but from a different article. This is from Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman says, today's recruits view WWE as an option, not an obsession. So Paul says, there's a difference right now in today's recruits are those who see this as an option, not an obsession. These aren't people living and dying and breathing and hoping and praying that all of their dreams since they were 5 years old can come true or come crashing down around them by the decision that's made. This guy might say, oh, if this doesn't work out, I'll go play in the Canadian Football League, or I'll go play basketball in Europe. My thing is, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions you better not have the answer to, because if you do, you're in the wrong class, because this is for people that don't have the prior knowledge. Then he says, there are plenty of people I saw today that are qualified. Are they going to main event WrestleMania? There's a few people I can see that happening with, but not everyone. And I'm very excited about working with them in the future, but not all of them. If they're not going to main event WrestleMania, are you a disruptor? Are you going to be someone who's going to change the industry? Are you someone who's going to give us a vision that we don't have? Someone who's 20 better not look at this industry the same way I do. So, a lot of people took what Paul is saying here in terms of athletes seeing this as an option and not an obsession. They see that as a bad thing. Paul is telling the truth, and WWE needs to focus more on people who really want to do this. And I say, we don't need obsessive mark fans. Again, some of the best wrestlers had other options, or they were pushed in, they kind of fell backwards into this and were really good at it. I mean, we can go down the list, you know, of guys who for them was just an option. Sid, Goldberg, Nash, Warrior, Luger, Sting. These guys could have done something else, you know. Ron Simmons, almost anybody who played college football, you know, The Rock, you know, some of these guys, they tried everything and then just kind of like, fuck it, I'll go into wrestling. You know, The Rock was one of those guys where he's like, well, I tried pretty much everything. And then, you know, I guess I'll go do this wrestling thing. For me, I don't need you to have that same zeal as, you know, Johnny Gargano or a Liv Morgan, because I find that people who are obsessive about wrestling are absolutely boring and they don't have a life. Part of what makes you a success in wrestling is having interests outside of wrestling. You can grow up in the business, still have other interests, and still get into the business. You know, that's fine. And still not be a boring milquetoast person. But there's a lot of boring milquetoast people who, if you're only signing people who are obsessive about WWE and they can quote matches from 1984 or some shit, that's great. That's fine, sweetheart. But that doesn't make me want to watch you wrestle. It doesn't make me engaged with you. I don't care about that. I don't care about any of that. I want to think this guy's cool. I want to hang out with this guy. Or this guy is scary as hell. He'll kick my ass. That's what I care about. I don't care about we can sit down and teeter-totter about how much we loved In Your House mind games. I don't give a shit. Right? That it would be nice. It would be nice if you could be both. You know, somebody who was interested. Like you went into the military, you were over in Afghanistan, and you had all that kind of stuff. You read comic books and played video games, but you also had a life to live. Maybe you didn't get to wrestling until you were 28 and 29 or something like that, because you were out living your life. I get it. But you have life experience now that you can bring into the business that makes you unique. You know who you are. You're not a person who was just brought in and now we gotta sit here and watch you figure it out. You got to give me the my dream promo for fucking 3 or 4 years before you finally figure out who you are and do something else. I don't want that. I want a dude who's going to come in here. He has been doing something different. He's got a different attitude. He's got a different approach. It could be a girl too. And he's going to do something. He might not be perfect at it. Might not give the greatest leg drop or the best power slam, but he ain't gonna kill you, but he might look like he'll kill you. And that's the shit that wrestling is built on. That's the shit that I like. So those recruits, hopefully they're not, complete marks. And hopefully they're not complete, jerks either. You do kind of want people to be warm to the business that they're involved in. But I really don't need you to be the markiest of the mark who can sit down and talk about 2006 Ring of Honor. I really don't need that. I'm sorry if that's your bag as a fan. You're welcome to it. For me, I don't care about any of that. Most of my favorite wrestlers didn't watch this shit growing up. I'm not gonna hold you up. So it is what it is. I don't see it as a requirement. Now let's talk about SmackDown. Interesting piece of business this episode of SmackDown. One fantastic decision. One pretty good story that I'm headcanoning. Let's talk about that first. The Usos and Roman show up. No Paul Heyman. Very interesting. There was a lot of replays of SummerSlam on this show. Probably too many. In fact, I'm sure there was too many. So Sami Zayn shows up to the Bloodline's locker room. He's about to knock on the door when the Usos open up. They tell him that Heyman isn't there. He's recovering from the F5 through the table. And that it's not really a good time to speak to Roman. And that they'll shoot him a text to let him know when it's a good time. Sami Zayn's like, oh, yeah, okay, great. That's fine. But I'll talk to you guys. Sami comes back maybe a couple of segments later. He's about to knock on the door again. The Usos open up and say, well, we was just about to shoot you that text. But, as we said, Paul is not here. And he used to handle all of our interest stuff. The music, the pyro, and make sure everything is cool. But he's not here. Can you handle that? And Sammy's like, look, I'm not really the guy who can, it's not really my job, but I'll take care of it. I'm the honorary Us. I'll take care of it. So he runs off to take care of this errand that he was given by the Usos. Then he comes back a third time and he's about to knock on the door. He's already finished the job. He's even got into an argument with the guy at the production truck. And he wants to speak to Roman. And the Usos give him some more bullshit. And he's like, come on, guys. And I'm not the honorary Us or what? Am I not a part of this group? And then Jey Uso tells him he needs to start pulling his own weight. We won these championships. Roman won his championships. You need to start pulling your own weight or we're going to take your shirt. And Sammy was like, oh. Now, the whole time he was trying to tell them that this is very important, what he had to say to them. It's very important. They didn't want to hear it. They weren't interested in what Sami Zayn had to say. So Roman Reigns comes out there to close the show. And Roman, of course, gives us the rundown that the Bloodline, they always win the big one, then they come back to brag. Then he says that he hates Brock Lesnar. He hates Brock Lesnar because Brock Lesnar tried to kill the wise man. And they're not sure when the wise man will be back. And he says prayers to the wise man. As he does that, Drew McIntyre comes out there. He calls him the tribal queef, which is a tribal queef. We've had enough of your tribal queef. So he says that he wants to get his hands on him. He don't want to wait for Clash at the Castle. And soon as Drew McIntyre is looking like he's about to get in that ring, Karrion Kross theme song starts to play. And I stood up. I was like, yes. I'm like, so soon. Kross absolutely assaults McIntyre, bangs his head against the steps like numerous times, just pummeled him, beat the tar out of him. And then Scarlett appears. She puts the sands of the hourglass on the ring apron. Tock. Roman Reigns. And Roman is unconcerned. Yeah, he's very unconcerned. He didn't do a good job of selling Kross, but okay. Roman shouldn't be that too upset. So Kross pops out of nowhere, absolutely destroys Drew McIntyre. Alrighty then. Okay. For starters, Karrion Kross, my dude. So glad he's back. That was one of the, I'd probably say 3 or 4 things Vince did for the last 2 or 3 years that threw me for a loop. Firing Malachi Black, firing Bray Wyatt, firing Keith Lee, and firing Karrion Kross. Those were the 4 things that, to me, if I could shake the old man and say, what the fuck were you thinking? Those would be the 4 things. Well, the 4 firings. There's a bunch of other shit he did that I probably would shake the old man for. But those 4 firings, I would say, you old bastard. And I would probably put my hands on him. Karrion Kross was, to me, the most obvious slam dunk guy who was fired, including Keith Lee. Because to me, Karrion Kross is a modern day Sid Vicious who can actually cut promos. And that's the thing that I really enjoyed about him, is that he could talk. You know, he didn't necessarily need Scarlett. He could talk for himself. Scarlett was great. She was like a great pair of earrings or something. She was a great adornment to the person, to what Karrion Kross is. This is why when he was doing the crazy demolition thing, I was like, I'm not really tripping on that, because Kross is good enough by himself. You know, by himself, he was good enough. Scarlett was just a good addition to Karrion Kross. All right. So now he's got Kross. They're going back to his NXT persona with the hourglass. All right, cool. I love the Karrion Kross pickup. It was great. I know Kross is still going to be doing some, he probably got some things to finish with MLW. Probably got some other things he needs to finish up, but he was never actually officially signed in any of these companies. So it was just a great pickup. Excellent stuff. Great reintroduction. Reintroduces him on top. Have him take out Drew McIntyre, so we know that he's a heel, but we know that he comes in with focus. He's coming after Roman. Good. So now you got, if you're Roman Reigns, you're looking down the barrel of a lot of a deep roster now. Just with the increase in Karrion Kross, now you got McIntyre. You got Kross. You got Cody, even though Cody is injured. You got Seth. You got Randy, even though Randy is injured. So now he's got more, outside of, Cody and Randy, who are both out. He's got some good opponents here. Some of whom he had never wrestled before. Some of whom he had never completely beaten before. Now, yes, there are people who are still, howling at the moon that they want Bray Wyatt back. And I think that's going to be one of the ultimate feathers in the cap of Triple H. He probably will end up bringing Bray Wyatt back. I just feel like there's going to be a lot of guys. Probably not Strowman, but there'll probably be a lot of guys Triple H is going to reach out and bring back. Especially if they had a bad run in WWE. They didn't get much of a chance, and AEW didn't pick them up. So, Kross being back, excellent. Now, my head canon, and this would be great storytelling if they did it. Next week, Sami Zayn says, I tried to warn you about this Karrion Kross thing. I knew it was going to happen. And it could have been dangerous for Roman. But he wouldn't listen. Y'all wouldn't listen to me. If they could pull that, that would be a great feather in Sami Zayn's cap. And maybe they'll have Sami Zayn be the new wise man. That he'll get elevated from honorary Uce to new wise man. He could be the new sort of, I don't want to say manager for Roman, but the new advisor to Roman. I know tonight it made it seem like they were probably going to They were leaning more towards kicking Sami Zayn out. Like, they're trying to set up a path of removal for Sami Zayn out of this storyline. But he's doing this so perfectly. And it's working out so well. I would leave him here. To me, you don't need to touch the Sami Zayn bloodline storyline. You don't need to mess with that. Right? You can leave that alone. But the Karrion Kross introduction, again, he's a Triple H guy. You got to ask the question, how is that going to affect the pushes of other people? And this is something I want to talk about a little bit later in a little bit more detail. Because now we looked at, we got Triple H's first full week out. We've seen that certain people that Vince liked and was pushing weren't even featured on today's shows, on this week's shows. Somebody he was pushing actually got pinned, this week. We're kind of looking at this situation and we're saying, okay, Triple H is, he's picking favorites. Even people that weren't really being featured when Vince was there are now getting featured. And people who are being featured when Vince was there are now doing jobs for the guys who Triple H likes. That's weird to me, right? Especially, you can tell I'm trying to hold it in until we get there. But there's a list of people whose names weren't even mentioned on these shows now. And you can look at it and say, like, interesting. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I love the Karrion Kross return. It was excellent. Very well done. A big fan of Karrion Kross. Somebody was rubbing in my face in the Jim Cornette comment section that Karrion Kross got fired. Like, how do you like it, motherfucker? I told you. The Karrion Kross as WWE champion, that shit lives again. It lives again. It's alive. It's like fucking Frankenstein. It's back. I still believe it's going to happen. Karrion Kross will be WWE champion, goddammit. When? I don't know. I thought Vince was going to do right by him and he'd be world champion by now. But we got to do it the hard way. We got to start all over. Okay. All right. I do believe that you need to rebuild him up, though. Don't just throw him in there with Roman or just throw him in there with McIntyre. Show some clips. Show some vignettes. Forget all the demolition shit. All right? We can skip that. But show clips of his NXT stuff. His NXT promos. Let him talk. I know Roman is going to bury him and say that, oh, you back. Why you ain't wearing chaps or whatever the fuck. He's going to probably bury him for, the straps and everything. It is what it is. It's just kind of how, big dogs do. They're going to go in there and burial by fire, But I'm very happy that Karrion Kross is back. All right, now let's go through the order of this show. Ricochet defeats Happy Corbin. Ricochet took a bunch of crazy bumps. Pat McAfee earlier in the night had a Bobby the Brain Heenan style video where he talked about kicking Baron Corbin in the balls. And he says this leg has made millions of dollars. And so Corbin backstage yelled at everybody to stop laughing at him and said that he wants to wipe the smiles off of everyone's faces. And basically Ricochet agreed to be the first one. And Ricochet defeats Happy Corbin. He beat him clean. So we see that Happy Corbin was one of Vince's guys. He was somebody that Vince featured quite a bit. And Triple H decided that Ricochet was going to beat him. Look, I'm okay with Ricochet beating him. It's just the political aspects of it I didn't like. Corbin is not a guy that you're going to do too much with anyway. Like, he's never going to be world champion. He's a solid mid-card heel. The question is, what is the upside of Ricochet that, this makes any sense? Because Ricochet still can't cut promos. He has no character, no personality. What is he gonna do? He's gonna do moonsaults all the time? He's gonna keep doing 450 splashes and shooting star presses. What's gonna happen when he tears up his fucking knees? Which is inevitable, by the way. There has yet to be a high flyer who's been doing this shit forever and has perfect knees at 40 or something like that. So, That's my only issue. Is Ricochet? You didn't do anything with his personality or his persona or his character or anything like that. Whatever. All right, so Ronda Rousey is fired. I'll say fired. She's fined and suspended for attacking a referee, which is an oddly appropriate punishment for her crime. Obviously, they're not really gonna use Ronda Rousey as much. You could you could say, is it a Triple H thing that they don't want to use Ronda? I think that they're probably just going to use Ronda as an attraction. Maybe use her like a Brock Lesnar, where she doesn't need to be there every week. And I agree with that, by the way. I don't think you need Ronda there every week. So they're going to storyline, get rid of Ronda. Okay, cool. So Liv Morgan comes out there and her arms is in a sling, you know. She says that she's feeling a lot of different emotions, but since she looks at the championship and it's okay, but there's some things that she wants to address. And then the crowd starts to chant, "You tapped out." She said, that's okay. It's okay that you're calling me out on my shit or calling me out on my bullshit. The crowd booed her. Then she said she only tapped out after she thought the ref counted 3. And she survived all of these different arm bars from Ronda Rousey, tried to put over how tough she was. Crowd was just booing it. Just didn't care. Sonya Deville cut her off. Said that you can go by all this innocent Liv shtick, but you shouldn't be champion. And that Ronda Rousey beating you up made me happy. Then said that it was Ronda being fined and suspended shows that Adam Pearce sucks at his job. And that she loves seeing Liv Morgan hurt. And she's going to win the Gauntlet and then win the championship and break Liv Morgan's heart. I mean, she's absolutely evil. I love Sonya Deville. She's absolutely fucking evil. You know, like, this is an evil promo. Now, why she cut this promo and then lost, I don't know. I don't know. But better. Rhea Ripley, upon the booing of Liv Morgan, she tweeted out that the fans are fickle and that there's still time for Liv Morgan to realize that she doesn't need anyone's approval and to join Judgment Day. And I thought that was great in-character stuff. You know, it shows that she's paying attention and it shows some continuity. Even though she, you know, we don't really need, it kind of goes against what Rhea was saying before about not needing partners and not wanting partners, which, you know, it was the whole impetus for her heel turn in the first place. But when you are a part of a cult or a cult-like organization, you're always looking to expand. So, the people turning on Liv. Well, Liv doesn't have a personality. This is the thing when you don't have a second gear. Everybody loves the story of you getting to the top. Everybody loves that. The underdog babyface is chasing the championship. Everybody likes that. When you get to the top, yay! Now what? When it came to now what? Nobody had any answers. Liv Morgan just kept smiling and being a babyface, talking about how this was her dream and how she loves this so much and yada, yada, yada. There's just no character to Liv Morgan. And because there's no character, people were kind of like, fuck it. Boo. Boo. I mean, what is there to cheer? You know? Now, in terms of the tap out pinfall, okay, they've done stuff like this before, and I don't think that particularly made Liv Morgan look like shit. It's like Liv Morgan's an underdog, okay? Her tapping out is not that big of a deal. Personally, I like that she didn't deny it. She said, well, yeah, I did tap out. But, you know, I thought the match was over, you know? And people can call it out and say, well, no, you tapped at the same time, yada, yada, yada. All right, that's a debatable thing, but she's not being a coward. She's not backing away from it. She's not saying that she didn't do it. She's saying, you know, I survived all these dangerous arm bars. I survived the match. I won the match. You know, the referee's decision is final. You know, you don't have to like it, but if she's a babyface, she's telling the truth. Now, the people who were booing Liv were mostly smarks. I mean, that's just how it is. Liv was too child friendly. That's really who her push is for. Her push is for the young people, the children, because they're not very judgmental. They will accept that she, my dream. That's perfectly fine for them. That's enough. But for those of us who are a little bit more mature, this Liv Morgan thing has no meat on the bone. We want something more out of her. And now people are trying to push her to turn heel so that she will have more of an attitude. But I think that you need to have pure baby faces. It is imperative that you have pure baby faces. The issue isn't that Liv Morgan or anyone else can't survive as a pure baby face. The issue is that there was nothing to her, and she should probably, be a little, a little self-deprecating and say, some people think I shouldn't be champion and that's fine. But the fact of the matter is I am. Pull a John Cena. Try to make a joke out of it. But she's not, of course, she's not good enough yet to be able to do anything like that. Now, considering Triple H is the one who actually booked the finish to the Liv Morgan Ronda Rousey match, he probably has a plan for that in the future. And something tells me that plan bubbled over a little bit during this Gauntlet. So we got the Gauntlet match. So despite the fact that Sonya Deville came out there and cut this fire-ass promo, and I thought it was very good, personally, she lost. So the first match was Aaliyah versus Sonya Deville. Sonya Deville defeats Aaliyah pretty quickly. This brought out Raquel Rodriguez, who beat Sonya Deville, and then beat Shotzi, Xia Li, and Natalya, before losing to Shayna fucking Baszler. Shayna Baszler, who has been treated like an old pair of shoes for the last 2 years, is beating the hot new prospect in Raquel Rodriguez. Look, I don't give a fuck what you think about Shayna Baszler should have been pushed, and, this is, she was doing great in NXT. Fuck all that. All right? That NXT push was 4 fucking years ago. Raquel Rodriguez is the kind of woman you need to be pushing right now. Okay? Now you can say, well, how are they going to keep Liv Morgan as a babyface and she's wrestling Raquel, or you can't beat Raquel with Liv or something like that. And I will agree with you. Liv cannot beat Raquel. Not clean anyway. So the only way this makes sense that Shayna Baszler, now for starters, my issue wasn't even that Shayna Baszler won. My issue was that Shayna Baszler won clean. Why didn't she cheat? She should have cheated. Pull the tights. Foot on the ropes. We're supposed to be talking about old school wrestling here. Yes, she didn't beat Raquel with the chokehold or whatever, but she still should have cheated. There still should have been some underhanded way of her stealing the win so that Raquel can actually try to come back and build a program between the two of them after the fact or whatever. But this idea that all of a sudden we're not going to start pushing all of the NXT Black and Gold folks, from Ricochet to fucking Shayna Baszler to fucking Tommaso Ciampa, and I'm just kind of like, wait a minute, let's pump our brakes here. Sure, Vince dropped the ball on some people, but I don't think Shayna Baszler was one of them. Shayna Baszler didn't have a personality in NXT. She just had good matches. That was it. And it's like, you can't replace personality. Personality is key. So now you put somebody like Liv Morgan who has an issue with personality, and you're putting her against Shayna Baszler, who also has an issue with personality. You just made this match boring as shit. What's the intrigue into this match? Who's going to be cutting the promos for this match? And what are the promos going to consist of? Shayna Baszler coming out there cutting cannabis lyrics. I'm going to put my fists through your chest and rip out your spine and boot it into the third row or some shit like that. I don't know, man. I'm not feeling this one. I'm not feeling the Shayna Baszler decision. And I know that it's probably going to get tied into the Ronda Rousey story, because the Shayna Ronda story is an interesting one. And it's a great one. It's a good story. And it's going to be something where Shayna Baszler is as bad as Ronda. Maybe she's going to say, I'm not as nice as Ronda. All right. Okay, I see where he's going with this, with the Shayna Ronda connection. I still don't like it. Now, if they put somebody in Shayna Baszler's corner, like a manager, let's say Sonya Deville is the manager for Shayna Baszler, then I'll give you the thumbs up. I would say this was great. This was fine. Perfect. You know, then the promo earlier will make some sense. That Shayna Baszler needs a mouthpiece because she's not good at talking herself. So Sonya Deville volunteers to talk on her behalf. And she kind of becomes the MVP for Shayna Baszler's Bobby Lashley. Thumbs up. I still think Sonya Deville should be the champion. She's good enough on her own. But until we get to that point, I will settle for Shayna Baszler, Sonya Deville as a pairing, as a team. I like that. And they were teammates and partners and stuff before, during the Vince days. So there is some connection between the two. But this idea of just Shayna Baszler wrestling Liv Morgan, I'm not interested. And I don't think this does a big favor for Liv Morgan either, because the fans don't have the memory of a hummingbird. Everybody knows that Shayna Baszler's been worn out like an old pair of socks for 3 or 4 years now. She's been a tag team wrestler at most. This is the same as Liv Morgan having to wrestle Natty, for the most part. You've taken people out of a Liv Morgan promo, out of their segment. Why should they be excited about Shayna Baszler? There's no excitement there. Sorry. Personally, I would have either gone with Raquel or Shotzi. If you want to put Shotzi as a heel, Shotzi probably should have won. You know? Because Shotzi at least has personality. At least she has color, she has character. Raquel, okay, you still have a personality thing because they haven't given her a personality yet. She's still kind of a blank slate. That was a knock against Raquel. Maybe her work isn't the best, but again, you don't need to be great. You just need to not kill people. Okay? And Shotzi's, she's having an off time due to, a lot of personal issues that she's having. But Liv needed to be in there with somebody with some personality. She also needs to be, now, I can understand the argument that we need to put Liv in there with somebody that's going to, and somebody said this to me on Twitter, that fans will not boo Liv in this situation. And I agree, they won't boo Liv in this situation. That being said, though, we shouldn't be too concerned about Liv getting booed once. Now, if it was a recurring thing, like Cena and Roman, maybe I would consider that to be a more important issue. But just because one road crowd went nuts and started to boo Liv Morgan, the fact that it was a South Carolina crowd was concerning. But, the fact that there was one road crowd that booed Liv Morgan, I wouldn't be too concerned about that. But I don't see what we do here that's going to make this interesting to the average person. They're going to find a hard time getting into Shayna Baszler. You're going to have to add some color to Shayna Baszler. You're going to have to add some personality. Sure, we got the grittiness and the submission, magician, and that stuff. That's great. But it's not exactly box office. You know what I'm saying? But, all right, we'll see. We'll see. All right, Kofi Kingston. Kofi Kingston is talking about Woods back, gone, recovering after she got attacked by the Viking Raiders last week. And he's going to make the Viking Raiders pay. So after the Viking Raiders beat up a pair of jobbers, one of which was called Bobby Gibson and Jim Mulkey. The Mulkeys were a family of jobbers, I believe. I think it was in Memphis or Alabama or Georgia or something like that. So it was Triple H showing off his deep knowledge of the territories, and Gibson is the name from the Rock and Roll Express. So the Viking Raiders crushed these guys. They were job guys, perfectly fine. Then Kofi attacks them from behind with a kendo stick, just goes wild on these guys. The crowd is really into Kofi at this point. So the Viking Raiders flee. They fled Kofi Kingston with a small guy with a kendo stick. I mean, at least he had a weapon. And then they started a match. Kofi Kingston versus Eric of the Viking Raiders, and Kofi Kingston wins. So the Viking Raiders take one step forward and one step back. They didn't move at all. And New Day is continuing doing what New Day does. Triple H needs to take this opportunity to do something different with New Day. I mean, they need to revamp. They need to revamp in the worst way. For Christ's sake, they need a revamp. They need something new. They really do need something new. All right. The Women's Tag Team Championship Tournament will begin on Monday Night Raw this week. I guess the brackets will break out during the weekend. You know, how many women's tag teams are there? 0, right? There's none. So we're just going to have a situation where I guess a bunch of women are going to be thrown together in teams. That's not really a tag team division. It's not really a tag team division. Now, I know a lot of people are thinking, hoping, praying that, one of the teams in this thing will be Sasha Banks and Naomi. I'm guessing they're going to come at the end. Similar to CM Punk when he was sent home during the summer of Punk, he came back. I'm pretty sure they're going to do the same thing here, where they're going to have the big tournament. There's going to be new women's tag team champions, and then that's when Sasha Banks and Naomi are going to show back up. And we're going to figure out who the real champions are in some kind of ladder match or something like that, which I think would be perfectly fine. I think that would be better. The question is, what kind of fucking teams are we going to have? It's going to be absolute nuttiness. I'm looking at this right now and saying to myself, there's no fucking teams. People like Toxic Attraction. I'm like, well, maybe. But we still got Mandy in NXT. Are you going to call up just Gigi and JC? Which I guess you could. Theoretically, somebody said you have to call them all up at the same time. So you could call up Gigi and JC and use them as a tag team. But you really got no other options here. I don't know. What's your options? I like the idea of Alexa and Liv as a tag team, but they got Liv as a singles champion. Nikki and Doudrop. If only we got rid of that shitty Nikki character and we changed Doudrop's name. I don't see why we can't do that. We can do both of those things, right? But we still have no tag teams. We still have no, I guess Sky and Kai, Bailey's team. I guess, would that be, then would Asuka and Alexa be a tag team? I'm not a fan of that. I don't know, man. I'm not one of these people that hates the women's tag team championships. Again, if you're going to have it, just make it good. That's all I care about. Are you going to be able to tell good stories with it? You could tell good stories and do more with women's tag teams. It's just, who are you going to put in this thing? You need to build actual tag teams. It seems like, again, Triple H is just trying to make the indie marks happy. And they want women's tag team championships. They don't care about there being no women's tag teams. They had time to build up women's tag teams and they didn't build up any. They just had Bailey bring in 2 people. And I guess Bianca has 2 people. And that's the tag team division, I guess. It's like, no, afraid not. Afraid that's not a tag team division, sorry. Gotta do a little bit more than that. Okay? Gotta do a little bit more than that. But I'm gonna keep things open. We'll see. Alright, Shinsuke Nakamura defeated Ludwig Kaiser. So he's going to wrestle for the Intercontinental Championship. And he's going to wrestle for the Intercontinental Championship next week on SmackDown. So they're not even going to try to make this one last to Clash at the Castle. In addition to this, they showed a vignette for Gunther, which was awesome. And should do that more often. Should have did that before the match, actually. So this was great. Gunther versus Nakamura. Good setup. Didn't like the 50-50 booking of Nakamura losing to Ludwig Kaiser. And then, even though, Gunther is the reason he lost, I still didn't like the 50-50 booking of it. Should have been disqualification or something like that. But Nakamura is going to be booked better now that Triple H has him. Ought to be better for him. So that ought to be excellent. But since Gunther is also a Triple H guy, he was the reason Gunther was undefeated all that time. This ought to be great, It's 2 NXT guys that Triple H both likes, and everybody else likes them too. And Vince was doing right by Gunther. So this is perfectly fine. Gunther needs to win this match, of course. But the question is going to be, who is Gunther going to wrestle at Clash at the Castle? He has to be there. It's a big European show. Gunther has to defend the title. Against who, though? Are they going to switch the belts and put the belt on Nakamura just so Gunther can win it back in Cardiff? I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that at all. So, I don't know. But they need to do something. And I just considered that they might bring in some women from NXT UK over to America for the women's tag team thing. There's been some women from NXT UK that I haven't seen in a long time. I think Jenny is one of them. I haven't seen her for a long time. You also have Amel, who has been over there, probably been ready to be pulled to the United States for a long time now. So they could pull her over, They still have some women in NXT UK they could use. But interestingly enough, outside of that women's tag team division is going to be absolutely sparse. It's absolutely sparse. I'm not missing anything. Let me take a look at my notes real quick. I don't want to leave y'all with dead air. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. I didn't miss anything. Cool. All right, so Triple H taking over WWE has left some people out in the cold. We really didn't even see their faces or hear their names this week. But you got Theory. I haven't seen hide or hear of Theory since SummerSlam. They didn't talk about him on Raw. He wasn't talked about on SmackDown. He's essentially pushed back into the closet. He still has the Money in the Bank briefcase. So the threat is still there. But he was a Vince guy. And now it seems like Triple H is moving him out of the way. Now, we could say that, he's positioned and he's established, I guess you could say. So now it's time to establish other people. I mean, he's 24. He's not that established. The next name, I'll probably be a little bit more established than that, and that would be Lashley. Lashley wasn't on Raw. And he's going to be on Raw next week. He's got to defend the title. But now we're looking at the idea that he could possibly lose the belt to Tommaso Ciampa, a guy who is not only half his size, but also not over. So I'm going to withhold judgment over whether Triple H is affecting Lashley's push till after that match. We'll see how that turns out. The 24/7 gang, again, for the second week in a row, not featured. Maximum Male Models, not featured on SmackDown at all. I didn't even hear about Maximum Male Models on SmackDown. Riddle was written off TV. What was it? His match was canceled 6 days before it was supposed to happen. Then he got stomped again on SummerSlam. Was he even mentioned on Raw? No. Well, I think he was mentioned. I think Seth Rollins laughed at him. But that was about it. He wasn't mentioned on SmackDown at all. Drew McIntyre got his head smashed into a set of steps. And pretty much they're leaning more towards a triple threat match with Karrion Kross at this point. More so than Drew McIntyre getting his big moment in Cardiff. If you're Drew McIntyre, you've got the worst luck as a top guy in WWE. You win the Royal Rumble, you're about to become the world champion. COVID. Nobody's going to get to see it. At least not live. Everybody's going to watch it, but it's going to be pandemic. You're going to defend the title with no crowd. When the crowds do finally come back, they're tired of you. So they're cheering the heels. And then they keep you away from Roman you wrestle Roman, you lose. Then they keep you away from Roman for a year. Under the idea that you're going to build to this big match in Cardiff. Only for Vince to get outed as, being inappropriate. Get himself forcefully retired. And then in the middle of your new push, they bring back somebody to replace you. If you're Drew McIntyre, you have the worst luck as in WWE. It's awful. It's awful. Lacey Evans. I don't know if Lacey Evans is still sick, but her name was not mentioned on this show. She was not on this show. And I know Vince really liked Lacey Evans, but she wasn't featured. Raquel Rodriguez, we talked about this already. Vince really liked her. She was big. They were trying to push her. They only had her losing to Ronda Rousey. Now she's lost to Shayna Baszler too. Ronda Rousey, they wrote her off TV. She was Vince's favorite. They were trying to utilize her. Maybe they would utilize her inappropriately, putting her into too much stuff. They had kind of overexposed her, and now she's lost twice. It was probably for the best that she got moved to the side. But we see now that the Triple H era, is starting to push some people to, it's actually starting to actively harm certain people. People who had routinely FaceTime on TV now don't have it anymore. We're now starting to push, Corbin is another one. He was a Vince guy. Vince used to give way too much time to Corbin. And that's a fact. I can even say that he gave Corbin way too much time. And now Corbin's losing to Ricochet. Apparently Logan Paul, who Triple H didn't even know about, they have no talks and no plans of bringing him back anytime soon. I guess he's about to have a boxing fight. But before I even heard that there was a fight, I heard that Logan Paul wasn't coming back anytime soon. So even though he's under contract, they'll probably break him out for, another big show, probably whatever big pay-per-view they got later on, maybe Saudi Arabia or something like that. So there are some people who are being focused on. I could tell a lot of the comedy acts, the Doudrop and Nikki, they haven't been on TV since Triple H took over. At least I don't think so. So the comedy acts, the Dana Brooks and all of them, they've gone missing. Some of the people Triple H had no hand in pushing, they've gone missing. And the Theory one bothers me. The Raquel Rodriguez one bothers me. Riddle, I think he's going to have to relent on the Riddle thing because the Riddle is so over with the crowd. He's going to have to relent and eventually give us that Riddle and Seth Rollins match. So there was no doubt that he was going to do it anyway. He probably just did the whole Riddle and Rollins thing to build up the heat for Cardiff, which is perfectly fine. But to cancel the match 6 days before it actually was going to occur, just odd decision making. It's really odd decision making. But we'll see how this turns out. Not a fan of the Shayna Baszler thing, but it is what it is. Ricochet, don't hate him. Like him more than I like Corbin, that's for sure. But at least Corbin can cut promos. At least he can talk. Ricochet, I don't know, man. And that actually leads me to, Madcap Moss is another one. Vince liked Madcap Moss. Didn't hear anything about Madcap Moss for the last, 2 weeks? What about Rick Boogs? Was another guy Vince liked. Otis was another one. Vince had Otis in the Alpha Academy. Chad Gable had a match on Monday. Otis wasn't even there. I don't even think he even talked about Otis. So you see that Triple H is coming in and he's doing essentially what Vince did to him. He's fucking with some Vince projects. And some of the ones that he's fucking with are people that I actually like, or at least I think there's something to them. And replacing people who have personality with people who don't have personality. I'm not a fan of that. I'm sorry. But let me know what you guys think. Like, share, subscribe. And I'll talk to you guys later, man. Peace out.